Welcome to Leadership Devotionals. Today is the fifth installment of the case of Peter, which is a case of narrative transformation. And for the past episodes, we have talked about Peter's self-serving vision, his overestimated abilities, dysfunctional relationships, and his craving for power. And now the last of this is Peter's destabilizing tendencies. And the exciting part of this, which I can hardly wait, will be the next episode will be how Jesus mentored Peter in all of these factors that when he saw Peter, he was like that. But we know that Peter eventually became one of the foundational leaders of the early Christian church. And the transformation that occurred to him because of the patient mentoring of Jesus Christ. And so this morning, we will talk about Peter's destabilizing tendencies. And one of the characteristics of a healthy community or a healthy organization is the characteristic of a safe and collaborative climate. When workers and your subordinates and your people, line and staff feel that they are safe in your environment, it is going to be a healthy organization. Simon Sinek has always advocated on this, that the climate of safety in the organization, the climate wherein the worker will feel that he is safe to innovate, he is safe to do within his sphere of influence, within his authority of working, that he is safe in that environment is always the sole responsibility of the leader. Paul describes that kind of community as a mature community. In the words in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 14 to 15, he says, "We will no longer be infants, tossed back and forth by the waves, and blown here and there by every wind of teaching. Instead, because we are mature, we will be speaking the truth in love. We will in all things grow up into Him who is the head, and that is Christ." Oh, such a beautiful description of an organization where a worker will feel safe. They are not just tossed back and forth, by the every whim of the leader, but because the leader has made it a point to let his people feel safe and not, destabilize the community, then they will be speaking the truth in love. And they will, in all things, grow up into who is the head, and that they will grow up in Christ. Speaking the truth in love is a concise description of the safe community that is able to confront as well as support, that is able to collaborate and yet encourage individual responsibility, that can provide both nurture and at the same time accountability. Apostle Paul says that this type of community is comprised of mature people rather than infantile people. Leaders with infantile, bloated egos tend to destabilize communities rather than encourage safe and collaborative climates. Leadership research in various settings confirms this fact. Specifically, healthy organizations need leaders who will encourage group problem solving without allowing their egos to get in the way of the group's best interest. They also need a willingness to back up one another during difficulties, to build trust, and to focus on maintaining the climate of safety within the group. Fellow leaders, this climate of safety is very, very important in your organization. Leaders who are intolerant of dissent, sensitive to criticism. Just a little deviation or a little disagreement from what the leader says, the leader goes into a fit of tantrum. That's what we call sensitive to criticism. Driven to gain personal power and glory, and unable to listen well, and who are unnaturally competitive and unsympathetic, do not facilitate safe environments. Such leader destabilizes rather than stabilize communities. I'll tell you of a story of an experience of Simon Sinek. He was in one hotel in Las Vegas, and when he was there, ordering and drinking his coffee, the bartender, the one that was attending to him, was very nice. He was so enthusiastic, he was so full of life, and he was doing the extra mile and this developing a relationship with his customers, with his clients. And Simon noticed this with this man. And so one day he talked to this man and said, what makes you do that? How come you're so invested in this work? Then the bartender answered him and said, I feel safe in this hotel. I feel safe in this community. We can make our own innovations, and people will encourage us, and that develops a sense of safety. We are not afraid whether our heads will roll off, or we get booted out or fired out. That same person works in another hotel, and in that other hotel they just work as if they are just under the radar, because if they go over the radar, their supervisor, who are quite sensitive to criticism and a little immature, will be offended that they will be overshadowed with the people that they are working with. And so they just work there just for the pay. They just work there just for the job, just within their job description, and no more, no less. But in the other organization where they feel safe, where they are encouraged, they are visited by their supervisors, and they are asked how they are doing. They are being coached to do the best and to be the best that they can be. They are so invested in their work, and they flourish, and they create relationships, and they bring back people because they have established good relationships with their clients. And so safe environments are very important, and they are basically the doings of the leader. In Peter's case, Peter's early life is tainted with destabilizing tendencies rather than stabilizing ones. Again, the information is rather suggestive rather than conclusive, but the clues are there in his interaction with people. Peter seems to be disruptive, distracting, and destabilizing in many of the gospel accounts. I'll give you an example. Often he seems to interrupt Jesus himself and draw the attentions of others away from Jesus' main mission or from Jesus' main point. It happens in the incident of the bleeding woman, when Jesus asked, who touched my garment? Then Peter said, Lord, people are rushing, people are mobbing you. Why do you have to ask that? Then, of course, Jesus said, a sense of power was out in me when somebody touched my garment. So Peter seems to deviate Jesus from the very main reason, or from the very main point or his mission when he was here. Yes, that bleeding woman eventually confessed to Jesus, and it was a miraculous healing. And it also happened after Peter's great confession on the Mount of Transfiguration, that was supposed to be the time when Jesus needs comfort. But rather, Peter again, destabilized the situation. He deviated from the main point, and he said, let's build altars here, this is something grand. This is something that people will remember forever, insensitive to the needs even of his master. Or during the foot washing in the upper room. Instead, Jesus wanted to wash the feet. He said, Lord, no, you should not wash my feet. And when he knew the benefits, he said, no, just don't wash my feet. You even wash my head. And of course, during the arrest and trial of Jesus, he interfered when, he cannot do much about his interference. Jesus encouraged Peter, to promote a gracious environment. The dialogue regarding forgiveness illustrates such teaching. The subtlety in this story is Peter's apparent desire to create a safe, forgiving climate. As I've said before, he said that the usual practice is just to forgive 3 times, but Peter, doubled it and make it into 7. But Jesus was trying to tell Peter that you have to be more gracious than that. Jesus' parable in response reveals the desire to mentor Peter and the rest of the disciples. We know that the parable said, forgive as long as you can forgive. Peter wants to appear forgiving, but not overly so. He looks for the reasonable position, not the highest possible reason to extend grace. Peter's attitude illustrates counterfeit safety in communities, in organization. Organizations can offer the appearance of forgiveness and grace, but still harbor the spirit of an exacting demand. And we have seen this in so many organizations. And so leaders, let us watch out for this. Let us be the champions of safety and stability in our organization. Let us make our people feel that in our presence, in our administration, in our doings, in our decisions, in our directions, our people are safe because we are leaders that have been mentored by Jesus, that Jesus resides in us and directs the affairs of our leadership. Leadership thrives best in a community with safe and a gracious climate. Jesus knew that, and he mentored Peter accordingly. Let Jesus also mentor you today. Pray to him, and he will be your mentor and coach, your trainer and teacher, and he will be with you in your leadership journey. God bless you.